Have you ever stood in a place so silent that even your own heartbeat feels like an intruder? That was me, standing at the edge of a frozen ridge in the Himalayas, the wind clawing at my coat, the snow swallowing every sound except my breath. I came here chasing a story, one whispered in mountaineer camps and carried by the lips of Sherpas who'd seen more than they were willing to admit. The story of the Yeti, the abominable snowman. The first night in base camp, the wind howled so violently it rattled the walls of my tent. But somewhere beneath that scream of nature, I heard something else. A low, guttural rumble, as if the mountain itself had grown. The Sherpas stiffened when I asked about it, their eyes avoiding mine. One of them muttered, almost to himself, "It walks when the storm hides it." The deeper we climbed, the stranger it became. I found tracks, not boot prints, not animal paws, enormous impressions pressed deep into the ice, each one spaced far apart, as though whatever made them was taking strides longer than a man could ever hope. That night, I couldn't sleep. The walls of my tent shivered, not from wind this time, but from the crunch of snow outside, slow, heavy, deliberate. I reached for my flashlight, every muscle trembling, and clicked it on. The light hit the wall of my tent, and for a heartbeat I swore I saw a massive shadow move across it. Broad shoulders, a hunched form, taller than any man, and then nothing. The silence returned, so suffocating it felt as though the mountain had swallowed me whole. I told myself it was exhaustion. Altitude sickness, imagination playing tricks. But then, as dawn broke, I stepped outside, and the fresh snow bore a single, massive footprint leading into the fog where no human should ever tread. By the second day of climbing, I began to notice the way the mountain itself seemed to turn against me. The air was thinner, yes, but it was more than that. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it was watchful. Whenever I stopped to catch my breath, I had the sensation that something stopped with me. Whenever I moved, there was a rhythm, faint, deliberate, echoing behind the howl of the wind. At dusk, we reached a high plateau where the snow spread out like an endless sheet of white glass. The Sherpas refused to go further, setting up camp near a jagged outcrop of stone. I could see it in their faces. They weren't just tired, they were afraid. That night, as we sat around the dim orange glow of the fire, one of the older Sherpas finally spoke. His voice was hushed, broken by the crackling of burning wood. The Yeti does not live in caves like the stories say. It lives in the storm. It is the storm. You don't find it. It finds you. His words gnawed at me long after the fire died. I crawled into my tent, but sleep never came. The air grew heavier, as if the atmosphere itself pressed down on my chest. Then, the sound, not the crunch of boots or the rustle of gear, but a deep, resonant breathing, close, impossibly close. My pulse hammered in my throat as I slowly reached for my flashlight again. But this time, I didn't turn it on. Instead, I listened. The breath moved around the tent, circling, snow crunched beneath massive weight. For a moment, I thought I could see the fabric of my tent bulge, like something brushed against it from the outside. And then, a low, unearthly growl vibrated through the ground, not loud, but powerful. The kind of sound that doesn't just enter your ears, but rattles your bones. The Sherpas shouted something in their language, banging pans together as if trying to scare it away. The breathing stopped, the crunching faded, and silence reclaimed the mountain once again. When dawn broke, the camp was a graveyard of footprints. They were everywhere, circling us, some prints so large I could lay both hands inside them and still not touch the edges. But the strangest part wasn't their size. It was the fact that they stopped midway across the snow. The footprints simply ended, as though whatever made them had vanished into the air. I tried to rationalize it. Melting snow, drifting ice, tricks of wind, but none of that explained the overwhelming weight of dread that clung to me. And that was when I realized something I hadn't before. This wasn't about finding the Yeti. The Yeti had already found me. We abandoned the plateau by mid-morning. The Sherpas moved faster than before, their eyes fixed on the ridge lines, whispering prayers under their breath. I tried to question them, but they no longer answered. The silence between us was heavier than the snow-laden clouds above. The path grew treacherous, ice fractured beneath each step, sending faint cracks echoing down invisible chasms. I tightened the straps of my pack, forcing myself to focus, yet my gaze kept drifting to the horizon. I couldn't shake the feeling of being stalked. Then, just before noon, we saw it. Not the creature itself, but evidence. On a slope of untouched snow, far above the tree line, there was a line of prints, colossal, deliberate. Unlike the chaotic scatter we found near camp, these formed a pattern leading toward the summit. But here was the strangest thing. Every print was identical. Same depth, same spacing, as if pressed into the snow by something unnatural, almost mechanical. The Sherpas refused to go near. One of them threw a pinch of rice onto the ground, an offering, then turned his back on the mountain entirely. By nightfall, 3 of them left, heading back down the trail without a word. I wanted to follow, but pride, obsession, and something deeper chained me in place. This wasn't just about myth anymore. This was about proof, about seeing the truth with my own eyes. That night, the mountain stripped us bare. A storm rolled in, shredding the sky with knives of ice. My tent bent beneath the wind's fury. Sleep was impossible. At some point, I unzipped the flap, peering into the blizzard. And that's when I saw it. At first, just a shape, darker than the storm, moving against the swirl of snow. Enormous, upright, steady, it didn't stumble like a man in the gale. It cut through the storm as though the mountain itself parted for its passage. I froze, breath burning my throat. My instinct screamed to duck back inside, to close the flap, to pretend I hadn't seen. But my body betrayed me. I kept watching. The shape stopped. It turned its head, slow, deliberate. Even through the storm, I felt it lock eyes with me. No sound, no growl, no charge, just silence. The silence of something that doesn't need to prove its dominance. Then, without a single step, it was gone. One blink and the snow reclaimed the shape as if it had never been there. The next morning, my tracks were still visible in the snow outside my tent. But where the figure had stood, nothing. No indentation, no print, nothing disturbed. The Sherpas said nothing, but their faces told me the truth. They already knew this would happen. For them, the Yeti was not flesh and blood. It was spirit, guardian, punisher, something ancient that belonged to the mountain. But I couldn't accept that. I needed more. So I pushed higher, alone. The higher I climbed, the less the world resembled itself. The trees vanished, replaced by endless white and stone. The air thinned until every breath was a struggle. My lungs burned, my vision blurred, and yet I couldn't stop. Each step upward felt less like a choice and more like submission to an invisible hand pulling me toward the unknown. By the 3rd day, I no longer marked time in hours or meals, but in heartbeats. My tent, my supplies, even the journal I once guarded like treasure, all abandoned in a hollow of rock below. I carried only what mattered, a camera, a flashlight, and the obsessive need to know. At dusk, I reached a ledge overlooking a hollow basin carved by centuries of ice. The snow here was untouched, a flawless sheet stretching to the far cliffs. I scanned for movement, for any sign that I hadn't lost my mind entirely. And then it appeared. At first, I thought it was a trick of shadow, but the shape moved, fluid, deliberate. A figure, massive and upright, stepping into the open basin. The Yeti. No lens could have captured it. no words could prepare me for the weight of its presence. It wasn't simply large, it was immense, shoulders as wide as to man, arms swinging with a power that could shatter stone. Its fur wasn't pure white, but streaked with gray, like the snow after a storm. It didn't rush, it didn't hide, it simply was. I froze behind a jagged ridge, trembling, the camera shaking in my hands. But some part of me, the part that had carried me this far, refused to look away. The Yeti paused mid-step, its head lifted. Slowly, it turned toward me. Our eyes met. The world fell silent, the wind ceased, even my heartbeat seemed to stop. In that silence, I felt something I couldn't explain, not fear, not awe, but recognition. As though this creature, this legend, had been expecting me. I raised the camera, my finger hovered over the shutter. Proof. All I needed was proof. But as I pressed down, the light died. Not dimmed, not flickered, died. My flashlight, my camera, even the glow of the sky, gone. I was swallowed in absolute darkness, yet the outline of the creature remained, burning against the void. And then I heard it. Not a roar, not a growl, a voice, deep, resonant, like the mountain itself had chosen to speak. You do not belong here. The words were not in English, nor in any language I knew, and yet I understood them perfectly. My body went cold, my knees buckled. Still, I couldn't look away. The Yeti stepped closer, the ground trembled beneath its weight, but no print marked the snow. It wasn't bound by the same rules as me. It wasn't just flesh. It leaned forward, and for a fleeting instant, its face was clear, not monstrous, not animal. Something older, wiser, eyes that had seen centuries pass, that had watched empires rise and fall, that had judged countless intruders before me. You may leave, it said, or you may stay, but if you stay, you become part of the mountain. The choice rang like a verdict. I tried to speak, to ask what it meant, but my voice broke in the frozen air, my lips moved soundlessly. The creature straightened, turned, and walked away. Each step carried it deeper into the storm until the snow itself consumed it. And just like that, the world returned. The wind howled again, my flashlight flickered back to life. The camera powered on. But the basin was empty. No footprints, no figure, no proof. Only me and the silence of the mountain. I returned from the Himalayas without photographs, without hair samples, without a single piece of physical evidence. My colleagues back home smiled politely, the way you smile at a child who insists they've seen Santa Claus. The world wanted bones, footprints, DNA. I had none of that. All I had was the memory, how vivid, impossible to erase, of a figure towering above me in the snowstorm, its eyes glinting like shards of ice in the moonlight. Some nights I wake up drenched in sweat, convinced I can hear heavy footsteps crunching in the snow just outside my window. Other times, it's the sound of a low, rumbling growl, so deep it vibrates through my chest, though I'm thousands of miles away from the mountains. Rationally, I know it's just echoes of my imagination, the brain replaying the most intense moments of my life. But in those moments, lying awake in the dark, it feels real, too real. The strangest part, ever since my return, I've had the uncanny sensation that I'm being watched. Not by people. No, this is something different. A presence. At first, I dismissed it as paranoia. But then, small things began to happen. A clump of snow found on my porch in the middle of summer. A set of muddy prints near my cabin, far too large to belong to any man. Once, during a blizzard, I swore I saw a shadow pass by my window, tall, broad, moving with an inhuman grace. I started digging deeper into the legends. The Sherpas speak of the Yeti not just as a beast, but as a guardian of the mountains. Some say it chooses who may enter and who must never return. Others whisper that once you've seen the Yeti, it marks you. A bond is formed, or perhaps a curse. The creature does not forget. It follows, it watches, it waits. And the most disturbing theory, that the Yeti is not bound by the Himalayas at all. It is not a creature of one place, but of thresholds, a being that slips between worlds, appearing where the veil between reality and myth grows thin. If that's true, then it could be anywhere. Even here, even now. So, why do I share this? Why confess to an encounter that left me with nothing but memories and doubts? Because deep down, I know the truth. Out there, in the blinding snow, I did not imagine it. The Yeti exists. Not as a monster of flesh and blood that can be hunted or captured, but as something far older, far stranger, a living echo of the wild itself. And if it chose to reveal itself to me once, perhaps it will again. But here's the question I'll leave you with. If the Yeti is real, if it truly walks among us unseen, do we really want proof? Or is it better to let some mysteries remain unsolved? Because sometimes the unknown is the only thing keeping us safe. What do you think? Was the Yeti a real creature watching me that night, or just the mountain playing tricks on my mind? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe the Yeti is still out there, smash that like button to let me know. And remember, this is only the beginning of Season 2. Many more mysteries await. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chilling encounter.